Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Vegan Proteins Muscles by Brussels radio. My name is Alice.
And I'm Dani.
And this is episode 202.
Well, welcome back, everybody. Hope everyone's new year is off to a great start. I know this is coming out towards the end of January, but it's actually January 2nd as we are recording this. And both myself and 𝐬𝐮𝐿 and Alice are gearing up to head down to Orlando for the Run Disney Marathon. Although we're heading down a few days before you. What day are you leaving?
Oh, I wanted to ask you about that. I was thinking about leaving Tuesday, but if I need to be there Monday to help get set up on Tuesday, you just let me know.
I think Tuesday's fine. I'm pretty sure. I'll double check that afterwards because this is a weird show. Usually shows are Saturday, Sunday, or sometimes Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but this one is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or something. I don't know. It's weird days, weird hours, all weird. And we've never done a show in Disney before. So are you excited?
And the hours were different each day. I was pulling up the schedule and I actually ended up taking a picture because I said to myself, I'm never going to remember this.
Yep. I wrote it down and I've had to look back like a million times at it. I still don't remember it.
Yeah. I'm super excited. I love driving because it's like the only time I really let my brain just kind of zone out, and looking forward to that, and can't wait to see you guys, and be interesting being at Disney with the Vegan Strong booth.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. This will be our, I guess, fourth race. We did Boulder once, Peachtree Road Race. We just did the marathon in New York City, and now the marathon in Disney. We'll see how it goes. It's kind of out of the wheelhouse for everybody on our team because none of us are marathon runners or really runners, period. But they could still learn about how to build muscle on a plant-based diet, damn it. So
Absolutely. And besides, we had practice last year with Mr. Olympia being in Florida, remember?
Yes, and I like Orlando. I like Orlando a fair bit, although that awesome restaurant that I'm forgetting what it's called now, but they closed. Like they closed forever. They were one of the oldest vegan restaurants around. Man, it's really bumming me out. I can't remember the name of it, but they closed. So we got to find somewhere else to eat. I have a couple of ideas.
Okay. New Year's is always boring for me. I don't do anything because I can't stay up past about 9 or 10 o'clock. But it's okay. I like the idea of New Year's. I like the fresh start. I like the encouragement to set goals. Clients get really excited, so I'm all about it.
Yeah, I like New Year's a lot too. I actually had no reason to stay up till midnight this year because we didn't do anything and 𝐬𝐿𝐵 was asleep by like 9. But then I thought about it. I was like, I don't think I've ever fallen asleep before midnight on New Year's, so I guess I'm not going to start today. So I just stayed up until 12:05, wished everybody Happy New Year, and then went to bed.
Nice.
So we have I think it's an interesting topic. I hope you guys think it's an interesting topic. This is something we've kind of touched upon a few times in other podcasts, how there's really two types of clients, or even two types of athletes, if you want to think about it like that, because we're not clients, but I think you or I would fall into one of these categories. And that is that there are pushers and there are slackers. And that sounds like there are good ones and there are bad ones, but that's not what I mean by that. It's just like, I feel like I could take almost all of my clients and myself and kind of divvy them up into those camps. And I think it's really interesting to consider which one of those you are and then what to do about it. So first of all, have you had the same experience?
Absolutely. And yeah, I don't want it to sound like the pushers are the good clients and the slackers are the bad clients, because the pushers, think about how, you could be a pusher and that's a bad thing. Pushing things too far, taking things too far, and they have their own unique set of challenges, which we're going to get into that. Mm-hmm. I thought long and hard about this, and it's so true. It's so right. Which one do you want to get started talking about first?
Well, first, I think we should just kind of define what it is we're talking about. You kind of just started to right there. The pushers are those people that it's like, I always joke, if I told these people to walk off a cliff, they'd get in a line immediately. They would just immediately be like, how can I suffer more for this goal?
Yeah.
And in one, they could, if you're a lazy ass coach, they could be a very easy group of people to coach. because you could just let them beat themselves into oblivion. There's the other camp. I mean, I think most people know what a slacker is, but I don't, I think that it means like you find reasons to not do the things you said you were going to do more easily. Little roadblocks become something that can actually derail you. You need somebody to give you a bit of a kick in the ass. And I think that's why most people hire a coach, is because everybody thinks they're that person. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And lots of people are that person. And I've also noticed, because I've thought about this in other areas, like in life in general, I think you can be a pusher in some areas of your life and a slacker in others, and vice versa. Yeah. So that's what we mean by it. So I guess since most people at least are going to identify with the idea of being more of the person who needs a kick in the pants, like maybe we should start with the slacker side of things.
Yeah. So I thought really long and hard about like, who is my typical like slacker client? And I think, it's good to talk about that one first, because it sounds like we're beating them up.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're not at all. If anything, that's why you hire a coach, is because you need help. You need somebody to push you. That's, it's why I would hire a coach for different areas of my life, would be for the same thing.
It's not, so this isn't a hard and fast rule or anything. This is just what I have found to be typically true. Fitness slackers, I'm going to use that adjective throughout this, because we're only talking about in the scale of coaching and fitness and health. So a fitness slacker, I would not call them like a slacker in life at all, not in the least. They tend to have way too much on their plate. They tend to easily overload themselves, and they have a really, really tough time saying no to things, at least with their words, right? With their actions might be another story. And not surprisingly, they'll have a hard time setting priorities.
That's exactly what I was just going to say, was they have a hard time prioritizing things.
Absolutely. And, lots and lots of good things about them. My typical slacker client, they're typically like social kings and queens. Like, they have very successful careers. A lot of them, they may even be like the breadwinner in some cases. And they also will have like very good home dynamics usually, where everyone in the house gets along very well. And I find them to be like mostly very generous persons, Their desire to take care of themselves really like comes and goes though. And they tend to be like kind of maybe mostly motivated by like extrinsic things, like other people's opinions. They know that they should take care of their health, but most of the time they'd rather take care of someone else.
Yes, that's it right there. Like, I feel like their desire to take care of themselves is usually pretty high. Their ability to do so comes and goes. And I think that's why they're so frustrated so often, is because what they want and what their actions are like incongruent, and it's frustrating to them. And that's exactly it, that a lot of times they will prioritize others' thoughts, feelings, opinions, needs above their own. And it's almost like they can justify it. Like they can come up with reasons why. And they're not bad reasons or anything, but if you do that over and over and over again, every time somebody else needs something from you, you're not going to get very far for yourself. And that's just an inconvenient truth right there. But having somebody kind of in your corner to point out maybe that this is your pattern, and that it might seem like you're being very generous, but if it's at the expense of yourself, eventually you're going to crack, and then you're not even going to be able to give of yourself the way that you would like to. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I see it happen time and time again.
Yeah, and I also find that, and maybe this is partially our fault as well, as just vegan proteins in general, because we also have a lot of people in the other camp. So when we make these podcasts, it's like we're kind of talking to everybody, and that makes it tricky, because you could theoretically have two completely different podcasts about any one topic for these two different demographics of people. So a lot of times we're talking to people that are like overtraining, overpushing, overdoing, and being like, you need to chill out a little bit. And then the other folks hear it and they're like, I need to chill out a little bit. And it's like, no, not you. You don't need to chill out. You keep going.
Exactly. You have to tackle the clients in different ways. There are different strategies. There are different ways you talk to them. They get different homework assignments, right? So And
Yes,
your check-ins end
very.
up being very different.
Yeah, and a lot of, I find even myself, sometimes I'm coaching a particular type of person and I'm giving them advice that is advice. It's the opposite advice of what I personally need. And also I feel like I've gone through seasons in my life where I've been both of these people in fitness, in nutrition, in all of those things. I have been both of them. But like, if, I could be telling somebody else, like, you need to, don't stress so much, don't do this so much. But for myself, even in that moment, I might know, like, Dani, you need a kick in the pants. You need to stop coming up with excuses to not get to the gym because it's cold outside and you're warm and comfortable on the couch. Like, get up and go. So, I feel like it's not a bad thing to recognize these traits in yourself
Right.
because, like we just said, like, everyone's going to fall into one of these camps at some point or another. So, what do you do with that when you recognize, like, oh, I think that's me right now?
Yeah. I love that you said that you've fallen into both of the camps at one point in time. I would agree with that for myself. Of course, like historically been more on the fitness pusher side, but yeah, when you have a lot going on in your home life, family life, then the slacker traits tend to like become more dominant and you start to take on that mindset more and you think, oh, who am I? What just happened?
Yes.
I don't put those kinds of priorities aside for someone else. What?
Yes. But I also think it's like we're always trying to find this balance, right? Of, okay, I want to achieve my goals, and that's going to require a certain amount of me, but I also don't want to lose the other areas of my life that I very much like. So, how do I find this balance? And I also think, a lot like prep, actually, where in prep, like by definition, you will not make it to the end if you are not pushing, like probably
Right.
harder than a sane person should. And then there's this like yo-yo period at the end where it's like the slingshot goes in the other direction for a while. I feel like whether you're a pusher or a slacker, if you're trying to find that balance in the middle, there's probably going to be a bit of a period where you overcorrect.
Absolutely. And we're talking about this from a coaching perspective too. It makes me go back to like some of my coaching like certification training where they talk about like level 1 and level 2 clients, right?
Mhm.
And when you first hear about these two personalities, some people might argue that the slacker is level 1 and the pusher is level 2, but I disagree. I think they're both level 1. And in order for them to become a level 2 client, they need to be able to find that balance and take on both when they need them. So, pushers, you are not ahead of the game.
Yeah, no, and actually a lot of times I feel like they end up sometimes leaving fitness entirely.
Right.
I feel like people on the other side that maybe struggle to stick to their nutrition goals or struggle to stick to their training goals, they might get frustrated, and they might be kind of frustrated at themselves sometimes, but they come back. Like they keep coming back. They keep showing up. They keep trying, even if it's imperfect, which who isn't? But I feel like the pusher side can burn themselves out so much that they're like, F this gym culture. I want nothing to do with it ever again because it destroyed
Mhm.
me. It's like, it
And
probably didn't
pushers
have
will
to
be
be
the
that way.
first out of the camps to say, oh, I don't need a coach anymore, even though they haven't even come anywhere close to meeting their goals, especially when it comes to muscle building.
Yes. All right. So I'm trying to think if there's more that I want to say about slacker is probably too harsh of a word, but I don't know what else
Exactly.
to
That's why I'm
call
like
it.
fitness
Like,
slacker.
yeah. Like I don't people that need a push. Like that's the only other way that I can think about it. And if I had to very quickly divide them into camps, I'd be like the pushers are the slackers, right?
Yeah.
I feel like most of the people who are having a hard time being consistent, going to the gym when they need to go to the gym, they know it, right? Like they're aware that they should probably be doing more. And because of that, I feel like oftentimes they are more coachable. They are more open to learning because they kind of know that they don't know exactly what it is they should be doing.
Mhm.
And I don't always find that on the other side. I find it can be trickier.
Yeah, yeah. And I do think that in general, slackers are going to be also a lot more driven by the social aspect of coaching, the relationship building, and that accountability. Whereas again, the pusher would be more likely to say, "Oh, I don't need this anymore,"
Yeah. Hmm.
and
Yes.
be quick to cancel.
And that actually just made me think about the fact that, I think about how pushers need permission for one thing. But on the slacker side, I feel like one of the benefits of having a coach is helping you determine, okay, what is and isn't a sort of justifiable roadblock. You know what I mean? Like if you're sick, you shouldn't be going to the gym. Sometimes you'll get somebody that's like, oh, I didn't adhere to my program because I didn't go to the gym, but I was sick. And I'll have to say, like, no, no, I don't want you to go to the
Yeah.
gym when you're sick. Right. So they have that and they're like,
Hmm.
oh, okay, this is a good reason to not go to the gym versus my reason, like, well, it was cold and it was rainy and I just didn't want to go. Like, well, how can we plan for that better in the future? you know?
Yeah, yeah. I literally have some of that in my notes for like wrapping up. Yeah, that's dead on. Exactly. Can we talk
So
about what like
yeah.
a pusher typically is like for at least what I've found?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. You can go first.
Yeah, it's not like hard and fast rules, but I typically find them to be like fiercely independent individuals. Their minds are not easily changed about a lot of things. And they tend to be very much all or nothing personality types, which can be an advantage and a disadvantage. A lot of them are regularly setting goals for themselves, not even with me, their coach. They're setting goals in their own lives. They might have a vision board. They might have regular check-ins with themselves, like they're very organized in that way. And I think they also like tend to inspire other people a lot. And so their friends will come to them regularly, like asking fitness questions.
Mhm.
So they're like, okay, we know a lot about we know what's going on here, right? And they tend to be black and white on subjects. I already touched on that, but like just very rigid rules for themselves. Like
Yes.
they'll implement kind of those kinds of things. Also, they tend to, I mean, all of us experience burnout, especially now, right? But like, I feel like they experience burnout in smaller increments. And of course, they'll push themselves too hard, but they can also be really good at knowing how to like relieve stress, knowing what works for them. And because they'll have like periods of like small pushing and then being able to, disconnect and relieve stress and then go again. So they have a lot of like stamina in that way. Like that's why they've been able to like stay lean their whole lives, right? For the majority of part, for a lot of them. So like, their shining strengths are going to be like, great at reaching their fitness goals because they can find like intrinsic motivation. Like
Mhm.
they can find reasons like, oh, I love, this type of exercise. I've been a lifelong runner or a lifelong yogi or a lifetime weightlifter. That's their personality. They can find things that they enjoy. They'll make fitness, other things in fitness, their hobby. And finding that internal motivation is just like what does it for them.
Hmm. Yep. And often just highly analytical, usually really data driven, but and I also find, I know you mentioned this about the other group as well, but I do find a lot of them to also be pretty high performers in other
Yeah.
areas of their life as well. But I do find that a lot of them really struggle having some sort of social balance, like in their
Yes.
life. They might not have a super strong community or support system or friend group, or family support. And I don't think it's anything to do with their personality. I think it's just because they've like decided this is my priority. This is what I am super focused on. Maybe it's a couple things. Maybe it's fitness in their job or whatever, fitness in another hobby. And because of that, they're just like, it's like they have blinders on for their goal all the
Exactly.
time. And they're willing to do anything to get to their goal. And that's a really admirable quality, I think. And that's why people look up to them, right? Because seeing somebody say, I'm going to do this, and then they do it. Like to me, that's the definition of confidence is somebody doing what they said they were going to do. So when you see that, or like, yeah, I want to do that. It's like, I want to be able to do
Mm-hmm.
that. But
Yeah.
I find that it has like secret darkness within it is the best way I can put it. And I also find that it is often highly driven by anxiety.
Yeah.
That's a blanket observation, but it's like that is the gasoline in the tank is this fear of stopping or fear of slowing down or something.
For sure. And I lost what I was going to say because I was so impressed by what you just said.
I think a lot of people are afraid that if they slow down, they will not be able to start again. Like
Oh,
if
I
I
got it.
take a break, I can't keep going. Go ahead.
You said that they wait for instruction, or they're given instruction and they'll do anything to reach their goal. I would disagree with that. They'll do
Mm,
anything to reach their goal when it comes to weight loss. Other
yes.
things, no, they will not.
Yes, that's a good point. They'll do, I should preface that with they'll do anything to reach their goal that they think they should be doing. Does
That
that make
they think
sense?
they should be doing.
Yes,
Yes.
because they're, like I said, very analytical, very data driven. A lot of these folks have already done a lot of their own research. Like they listen to the podcast, they read the articles, they look at the studies, they know the stuff, they know it.
Mhm.
But that doesn't always mean that they know how to implement it very well. And this is why coaches have coaches, right?
Yes.
Like even the top tier coaches that you can think of in the world often have coaches because we are not good at setting these plans out for ourselves. And
Mhm.
most people are not an exception to that.
Right. Right. So what do we do about it?
So, where the pushers can definitely benefit from having a coach is the permission that they need, and not just permission, but encouragement to pull back. A lot of times they are training way more than is ideal for them to reach their goals. They're often, not always, but often not eating enough, like by a lot. And usually by the time they get to us, to me or you, like they've been doing this for years.
Mhm.
And they've finally thrown their hands up in the air and been like, well, this isn't working. So I need help because I've been doing this for years and I'm not changing. I'm not getting the results I should be getting for how hard I'm working.
Mhm.
But still, there's that mental, when they're finally at our door and we're like, okay, I see what you're doing. Here's probably what we should be doing. It's like their brain goes, nope, 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 I'm not doing that. Like that sounds scary.
Exactly.
Doing less will not help me, even if it will. So in a lot of ways, they're actually, because they're
Yeah.
expecting us to tell them to do more. We're
Right.
telling them
Exactly.
less or eat more or take more rest days or you need a deload. Or like if they
Mhm.
come to us saying like, oh, I had to miss a day, or they come to us and they're like, I was really sick on Wednesday, but I still make it to the gym. We're like, why would you do that? Why did you
Exactly.
think? Don't
Exactly.
do that. And they're expecting us to like give them 40 lashes if they do one thing wrong, when really that one thing, quote unquote, wrong may actually have been a really good thing for them specifically. They get hurt a lot. They get burnt out. They, sometimes they are literally stopped dead in their track by injuries caused by pushing too hard for too long. I mean, anybody can get hurt doing anything, but particularly overuse injuries.
Mm-hmm. Overtraining, yeah. I have a lot of similar things in my notes. Like I feel like for pushers, you are most likely going to be skating along the lines of taking things a bit too far. And sometimes you might even ask yourself, like, is this disordered? Right? You might be risking, physical health and mental health things, not just necessarily like, cutting the deficit too low or, it can be like you mentioned with the anxiety when we hyper focus and hyper obsess on these things, it's feeding into that cycle of anxiety. You're likely going to just continue sort of adding on more and more restrictions and rules when it comes to your food, your schedule. You might be adding new fitness hobbies just so that you can make sure that you are working out every single day of the week.
Yep. Yep. That's a thing.
But in reality, pushers are going to have just as hard of a time reaching certain goals, especially when it comes to, I have a lot of women coming to me who are trying to build muscle.
Mhm.
And, at some point in their lives, the fitness pushers, they swore to themselves something like, I'm going to be thin forever, or I'm going to be this size dress forever, something like that. And this ends up leading to self-sabotage when they're trying to make real significant changes to their physique.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a pusher, my biggest challenge to you would be to step out of first your food comfort zone. I think that's probably the hardest. This could mean buying some kind of snack or some kind of convenience food that you have previously deemed off limits, not allowed in your life, not allowed in your house, any of that. And I want you to schedule a time to allow yourself to have them. It could be,
that's a great one.
It's a scary, right?
That's been a homework assignment for several of my clients. Like, oh, you don't have peanut butter in your house? Please go buy a jar because we are going to work on that.
Exactly. And, you can start out just like, you could say, all right, I'm going to have, this Trader Joe's vegan pre-made taco or burrito, right? I can have that on my weekends between 6 and 7 o'clock, and it's a plan, right? You could say, oh, I get to have this after my toughest gym day of the whole week. For me, that's going to usually be Mondays, my big leg day, right? I know that you're going to be thinking, pusher, you're going to be listening to this and you're going to be thinking this is bad advice because these foods are bad for you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing. I think you're forgetting about your mental health. And when I talk about your mental health, I talk about your mental health when it comes to your relationship with food. Mm-hmm. And establishing these unnecessary food fears.
Yes. I mean, no one's arguing that like a salad isn't better for you than French fries. Like, obviously, duh, right? But living in a constant state of fear and anxiety around certain foods, because guess what? You will be in a room with French fries again before you die. How are you going to handle that situation? If you're sitting there white knuckling every second at the table, like forcing yourself to not eat a French fry, is that better for you? I don't actually think it is. I mean, the studies on stress are conclusive. That shit is terrible for you. So trying to find a way to be able to be around these foods, enjoy certain things in moderation, not be thinking about them for the rest of the day, because that's another thing. A lot of people will not have these foods, right? And then mentally obsess over them for the next 48 hours because they can't stop thinking about it. And it's like, that's not healthy at all.
Exactly.
It's really, really hard. And man, there's so much I could say about this. Another thing would be to practice having an actual rest day. And a rest day doesn't mean you go out and get 20,000 steps just because you're not in the gym. It's like an actual rest day. Like, just chill. I mean, if you want to sit on the floor and stretch for 20 minutes in front of your TV, whatever, but like, take an actual rest day, and it might fill you with dread and panic to do so. And if it does, that's all the bigger sign that you need to learn how to take a rest day.
Sure.
Like, it's uncomfortable. And I think the two demographics of people, it's really hard to put them in the other one's shoes. So what is uncomfortable to a pusher is going to be the comfort zone of the slacker, and vice versa. So I think it's really important for both of them to get out of their comfort zones. But their comfort zones are complete opposite places. Exactly. Discomfort is where the pusher is comfortable. They like the suffering. There's a part of them that is drawn to this feeling of deprivation and discipline and almost like a military kind of vibe. Whereas that sounds terrible to the other people. Like, they just want to be healthy and look good, and they recognize it's probably going to require a little suffering to get there. But they're not like looking forward to it,
Right. Right.
But
before I get into my second, before I go on to my second recommendation, and go too far away from that subject, I just wanted to end with from my first tip, having a treat here and there, even a processed one, is not going to hurt your health. In fact, as a coach, I can tell you that learning to have these treats in moderation is actually going to make you more successful in reaching your fitness goals. Didn't want to get too far away from that.
I think a lot of people misinterpret the way when we say this. I don't think people are fully grasping what it is that we're saying. I think a lot of people hear us and they say, I can have a cookie and reach my goals in spite of the cookie. And what we are saying is you can have a cookie and reach your goals because of the cookie. Because of it, because of incorporating it, not in spite of. I feel that way about a lot of foods. People are like, mock meats are a great substitute for people that are just going vegan. And I'm like, no, they're just, depending on what they are, they can just be great, period. We can end the sentence right there. But I know that pisses a lot of people off. So
it does. Second recommendation for pushers. And you sort of already went here I'm going to talk about like pushers and their workout program, right? If you're a pusher, I want you to sit down and make a couple of checklists for yourself. When is it okay for you to miss a workout? When is it okay for you to eat something off plan? For missing a workout, if you injure yourself, like there in that moment, you have a pain. That is an injury. That is your permission to stop and your workout's done. Okay. You need to take care of yourself first. And then building on that, if you've had a recent injury, right? And it's only been a couple days, or it's only even been 1 week, or really just you've had a previous injury, and the pain is greater than like a 5 or 6 out of 10. Or maybe this has just been going on too long. Now it's time for you to go see the doctor, not be in the gym.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, like you mentioned, when you're sick, right? And there's different levels of being sick. Of course, sometimes people can work out when they're sick and be okay. But like, if you're feeling dizzy, if you're feeling nauseated, or if you're struggling to breathe from like coughing and sneezing, like these are the times that's your pass.
Yep.
Self-care should be first above the gym. And for when you're on your eating plan, okay, your checklist for when it's okay to go off plan. Holidays, vacation. Now, I have had clients who literally make a thing about vacationing every other month. That's too much.
Yes.
But when you have like, a vacation once or twice a year, this is your time to enjoy your vacation and not eat on plan, right?
And sometimes not work out also.
And like, exactly. Good point.
Yeah.
If you have a reason to celebrate, whether that be maybe you got a new job, maybe you got a promotion at work, or just a win at work. Maybe you bought a new house, or just when someone, as long as they don't do this often, someone out of the blue makes you something special, right? Something nostalgic, or, oh, I'm just trying to make you this cool vegan dessert. This is the time when it's like, take a step back and enjoy the moment and enjoy the food and it's going to bring more balance into your life.
Yeah. And this is also a great shout out to flexible dieting, which makes a lot of these things easy to kind of have the best of both. For my pushers, I know you're sitting at home obsessing over the fact that you can't accurately track all of this stuff. That's okay. If you're going to track on a day where you're eating kind of weird food, power to you, especially if you and your coach have decided that's an okay thing and that makes sense for you, but you're going to have to make peace with the fact that it's going to be an estimate, and that's okay. Now, just to quickly flip back to the other side, right? Like the folks who are listening to this, like, we can find a reason to celebrate every goddamn weekend. Like, I know I can. You know what I mean? Like, if that's you, that's not what we're talking about. Like, track your food. Get as close to track, like, accurately as you can. Pick and choose what you're going to say yes to, who you're going to say yes to. Maybe you do go out to a restaurant pretty frequently, but you have certain orders that you're going to get, that they're in line with your goals. Like, see, this is why we could literally have 2 podcasts for almost every topic we talk about, because there's different types of people. And that's why I think it's so important for you listeners to figure out which one you are. And you might hear a couple bits and pieces from both sides and be like, I guess I'm a little of this and a little of that. Well, you may very well be trying to find that journey to balance that we were talking about before. But I think most of us have a natural tendency, and just recognizing where that is, it's going to help you decipher our podcasts and videos and stuff, I think, a little bit better. I was just thinking of something that's actually really, really tricky about both sides once they start. Oh, before I get into that, really, really quick, for the pusher folks, you don't get bonus points for doing more than your workout calls for. Exactly. A lot of people think they're going to get a gold star for doing their workout and then some. And not only do you not get a gold star, that is a, what is it, demarcation? Like we're removing points. Okay. Like you lose points for doing extra. Just want to let you guys know that. But okay, if you have the pushers and the slackers, and we have created programs that are ideal for each of them, here is the drawbacks, right? The folks that need to be pushed often they are going to start to see results with their eyeballs, right? They're going to see the fruits of their labor of following the plan, usually within a few weeks. They're going to start to notice physical changes, mental changes, scale changes, measurement changes. For the pushers, not only will it probably take longer for them to be able to see changes with their eyes, they might actually move in a direction they're not happy with at first, which makes it even harder for them to trust that doing less or holding back is actually the right thing for them to do. So I think that actually those pushers, they are the ones that need to take a bigger leap of faith and really try to trust the process, because they may have evidence in front of their eyes that this is not working at first. And everything inside of them is telling them to stop and quit and just do what you were doing before, because it might not have been perfect, but at least it wasn't this. So that's really tricky.
Yes.
Those are big conversations. Because
Can I move to the slacker recommendations I got here?
sure, yeah.
I think number one thing beyond the obvious stuff is you're going to have to start living a more atypical lifestyle to reach your goals. You're going to have to eat differently from the rest of your family most of the time. Now, there are a lot of slacker personality types that you guys are like powerful personality types. You know, you're such a generous person. You help people so much that a lot of you, I have found, have the power to literally like make the rest of your household eat similarly to you. And I'm talking about whether this is like turning your whole household vegan or having your whole vegan household eat healthier. You guys, a lot of you have this power, and it blows me away, right? And if maybe you have some of this power, right? Maybe let's just think about, when is the time when you guys like eat the same foods? Typically, it's going to be dinner time when you sit down at the table together. So at least having the ability to be in charge of the food and having everyone eat similarly to you, right? Now, if you don't have these powers, then there's going to be a point where there's going to be a lot of points where you have to eat differently from everyone else. And sometimes it's going to feel isolating, but that's the trade-off, right? And it's the reality that I feel like so many of my slacker type clients can't accept.
Right. One of the things that I tell my folks that are in this situation, especially if they're in a situation where like we're in a deficit because they want to lose like a fairly substantial amount of weight, I remind them this isn't forever. You're not going to be in a deficit forever. Yes, hopefully there will be aspects of your lifestyle that are in fact forever changed, but this period of significant weight loss is probably the weirdest lifestyle you'll probably ever have, and it will get more normal after the fact. So that kind of puts a little bit of a deadline on it. But a lot of my clients that fall into this camp, they have a lot of FOMO. They have a lot of fear of missing out on parties, social events, whatever. And
good point.
And you know, guess sometimes you're going to miss out. Like that's really what it comes down to. Now, you don't have to be bodybuilder, stoic, go full monk mode like Ben did at the end of his prep. But you can't say yes to everything and still move forward. You have to say no to some things. And it sucks. But does it? Does it suck? Does it suck if you say no to a night out at a bar, but you're moving forward towards your goals and feeling better and feeling healthier and feeling more confident? You don't know yet, because you're not there yet. So
I don't want to act like it needs to be all rigidity with the slackers, right? But here's what I would recommend. Like, I'm not saying never give yourself some slack, but instead I would challenge you to plan your flexible meal. And when I say that, I mean down to the day, down to almost the time, at least the like morning, afternoon, evening, right? And plan exactly what you're going to make or what you're going to order on the menu. And have this all planned so that nothing will be spontaneous. And this should happen once a week, right? For you to be able to reach your goals. This is what it takes. It's what it takes for you to be able to move the needle. And
if you don't move the needle, you're going to demotivate yourself very quickly. You want to move the needle.
Because I find that with my fitness slacker type clients. They don't want the diet to be all rigidity. They want to learn how to give themselves some slack and moderation. But if you open up the door to just like, oh, I'll figure out my flex meal when it happens, that flex meal is going to happen on Monday. And then Tuesday is going to come and you're going to be, it's time for another flex meal. And we're not moving forward. It's going to happen every single day.
Mm-hmm. Again, like you were just saying, like, this is what it takes, right? You're going to have to do X, Y, Z. And again, I think sometimes people hear us and they get confused, right? Because I don't live like that currently. Like, but that's because I'm where I want to, like, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's always things we can all improve and there's goals I'm working towards, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm not trying to lose 20 or 30 pounds. You know, and when I was trying to lose not 20 or 30 pounds, but 100 pounds, you bet your ass. Like I was tracking every little thing and being very meticulous with, you know, with some slacking definitely here and there. But now that once you're in a place where you're like comfortable enough to more or less maintain, flexibility is your best friend at that point. So really recognizing where you are in your own journey will help you determine how rigid or flexible you need to be. I mean, you should always be flexible with your methods, but I mean, how much slack are you giving yourself? You can quote unquote get away with a lot more when you're just sort of happy to maintain where you're at versus trying to make a big change.
And for the gym, there's going to have to be just rules that you don't allow yourself to break. You know, we say all the time, you schedule your gym time and you make that a non-negotiable appointment on your calendar. You know, a lot of times, a lot of my clients find it easier when it's butted up against something. Like it's right before work, it's right after lunch, it's right after work, or it's right before such and such thing in the evening if you don't do family meals together, right? Have it butted up against something else and just setting yourself up for success with packing your gym clothes if that's what you have to do. And these are the rules. And like Dani said, it's not going to be forever, but it has to be for that said period of time for you to make a dent.
And I have clients who, you know, so, I mean, we all have these days where it's like, we are just not feeling it. Like, oh my God, it is so rough. For those clients that I know are kind of giving into every little whim to not go to the gym, I have a rule, basically, like walk through the door. You don't have to work out. Go walk through the gym door. And if you want to go home, you can go home. And I'm telling you, they don't go home. Once they're through the door, they will do it. If someone has a home gym, I say, do your first exercise. Just do your first exercise. If you want to stop after that, you can. And it almost never happens because they do want to do this. It's the hurdle. It's the task switching. It's knowing that you have a challenge ahead of you. Like working out is hard, right? It's not always super pleasant and thinking like, oh, I don't want to do that. Like once you start, you're like, oh, this isn't so bad. I got this. It's another 30 minutes or whatever. So that's a good trick. And I find, again, with my, not even with my slackers, with me, like I do these tricks on myself all the time because I struggle with this sort of thing as well, especially when it comes to leaving my house. I have to come up with strategies for that. So any little mind game you can play with yourself, I think can help.
I allow myself to usually take a little power nap before I go into the gym because I have plenty of days where I've pretty much arrived. I haven't walked through the door yet, but I parked my car and I really want to go home, you know? So that's when I'm like, all right, we're taking a 10-minute power nap right now. And when I have that time to settle my brain, I'm compliant. I get up and I go. Like that's the trick for me.
That's awesome. See, that would never work for me, but I know lots of other people it would work for. Like I'd fall asleep in my car. Police would be knocking on the window at 2 a.m. Like, what are you doing here? But do you have any other tips for the slacker side? Because I got a big one. So I want to hear if it's on your list.
I think that the fitness slacker types are very motivated by the social aspect of everything. And yeah, if you can find someone that hopefully you just absolutely adore, because it does make a difference, that will just like go all in on this fitness journey alongside you, you're going to get a lot of reward and stick to it a lot more so than say a pusher personality type, right? You know, Group fitness classes can be very motivating. Group challenges like the group fat loss challenges, and just adding for you, I would say, yes, add fitness hobbies and make sure there's social opportunities, and it can really be a breakthrough for you.
Yeah, like a running group or a hiking group, or maybe there's a rock climbing gym near you. Like it doesn't have to look like traditional exercise to be exercise. And, a lot of times these hobbies beget other hobbies, and you meet other people that have similar goals to you and maybe live this kind of similar weird lifestyle that you are trying to live. It helps to have other people to sort of model after when you have those folks around you. So that was mine as
most
well.
of the time a lot of times your family is not going to be on the same page as far as eating the way you eat.
Your family, your spouse, like that's common, and you can't change anybody else, nor should you try. Like, if you have the power and your family's on board and you're making dinner and everybody's eating it, cool. But if you try to change everybody in your family, they're just going to get pissed at you and resent you. And we've made podcasts about this before. It's not worth it. Just live by example, but you can find other people. My last tip is actually for both sides, because I think it's very important for both sides to find some system of accountability, because they both need it, and they both need it for very different reasons. It is very easy to, miss the gym for a day, and then you look up and it's like 3 weeks later and you haven't worked out at all. Just like it's very easy to be like, oh, well, I'm just going to cut my calories a little bit because I feel a little bloated today. And then and then it's been, 2 weeks and you've undereaten again. And now you're like, running 50 miles a week and adding extra sets. And it's like, you both need permission and suggestion for different things. And obviously coaching is like a no-brainer, but I understand that's not in the cards for everybody. Find somebody and tell them what you need. Because if you're a pusher and you say to somebody, hey, I need somebody to hold me accountable for my fitness goals, and they are not a coach and they don't understand this stuff, they're going to be like, yeah, good job. Great job dieting. Like, but what you need is somebody to be like, hey, you seem very stressed out. Like, how are your joints feeling? Maybe eat more. Versus like the other side, you need that friend to text you and be like, hey, you said you were going to go to the gym today. Did you go? You have to know what you need, and then you have to ask for that thing. And the cool thing about a coach is you don't necessarily have to know what you need, because it's their job to figure it out. But if you are not going to be working with a coach or a trainer, and you're going to talk to your friend or your spouse or just a gym buddy, like they need to know what you need, and you need to ask for it clearly so that they can be there for you in that right way. But accountability, just a nudge to check in with yourself to see how you're actually doing on the stuff you said you were going to do.
For sure. And just telling more individuals about what you're doing and about your goals and why it's important to you. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes you tell people about your goals and they disagree. They'll just be like, you don't need that.
Yep. Straight
up to your face. They will say that. But if you express to them why you have these goals, it's going to completely change the narrative. And the more people you tell, the more you're going to follow the plan and trust the process.
Yeah, that is true. People will definitely try to dissuade you. And on both sides, like it could be something that you think is very obvious to get you healthier or fitter. And they'll be like, you're fine the way you are. And it's like a very sweet sentiment, right? Like, right. It is a sweet sentiment. You're perfect. You don't need to change. It's a sweet sentiment, but sometimes it kind of misses the point. Sometimes people are right. Like if you're already killing yourself in the gym and you're like, hey, this year I'm going to run an ultra, and your family is just like, what are you doing? Like, again, having some professional input, I feel like is so important here, because a lot of times if you're not trained, how would you know? How would you know what is too much and not enough? It's very hard to tell. Even like I said, even for certain coaches, like that's why they have coaches, because it's just hard to gauge on yourself. So anyway, I think I've said everything I have to say about this. How about you?
I just have a story, because talking about sharing your goals with people and then them arguing with you, because it does happen on both sides of the fence. Everyone who is close to me knows that I am going into a build right now. And I'm telling every single person that I come across, if someone asks how I'm doing, it's likely going to come up. And I told someone who, I'm not really that close to, that I'm looking to bulk and I'm looking to gain a certain amount of pounds and put on more muscle. And it's for my competition and how much I'm loving competing this year. And you know what she said to me? No, you don't want to put on more muscle because that muscle is just going to turn into fat when you get old.
It's
my
science.
mind was so blown. My mind was so blown. I was like,
Yeah. Everybody's got an opinion, man. Everybody's got an opinion. It's really wild.
what people will say to you to dissuade you. We know
Yeah,
that's not
and-
true. FYI, it's not true, guys. Okay.
Of course it's not. Yes, it's definitely not true. And I feel like if there was a mechanic in front of me talking about, I don't know, freaking carburetors or something like that, I would just be like, yeah, sure, bro. Like, you know, whatever you say, because you're the carburetor guy. Like, I don't know. But when somebody starts talking, if somebody, a professional starts talking about fitness or health or nutrition, people do not respond the same way. They're like, well, I have a body, so my opinion counts.
Exactly.
And it's just, it's wild. It's just,
That was the
anyway.
craziest thing. Anyways, that's it.
Yeah. Well, I love that story because it is, man, that's a whole separate thing. Like bodybuilding post show, I have literally had people come up to me after shows and like grab my arms and be like, oh, what happened? And I'm just like, thanks. It was a little, very old man who goes to my gym who English is not his first language. So I'm cutting him a lot of slack in a lot of places. But that was a real thing that happened. And I was just like, this is why people are afraid to let go of being super lean, is because of things like that. Right. All right, guys. Well, hopefully this was a helpful podcast for you. Hopefully nobody took any like offense to the word slacker. Come up with tell me a better word, right? Like there's no offense meant here because I've been that slacker many times in many areas. But if you're interested in any kind of one-on-one coaching, that is what we do. That's what we've been doing at Vegan Protein since 2008. So go ahead and in the show notes, there's an application, fill it out. One of us will respond to you. If you're not already subscribed to us on YouTube, please go ahead and do so. And if you have any questions, just shoot us an email, coach@veganproteins.com, and one of us will send you a video message back. Thank you so much for tuning in. Once again, my name is Dani.
I'm Alice.
And we will talk to you soon.